Matt, you've had a truly impressive career defending and protecting people's constitutional rights, often at great personal cost. But you didn't start off saying to yourself, I want to be a civil liberties litigator. What inspired you to go from, a comfortable, anonymous life where, you could have made a great deal of money in private practice to actually being on the front lines of defending free speech and religious liberty?
Well, it actually started even before law school. I was a pastor, and it was 1983, and there were two people in Kentucky, a Roman Catholic and a Protestant. They wanted to reach out to pastors about abortion. It was subject matter that I had no knowledge about. I knew a lot about the Bible, original languages, history, and so forth. Graduated number one in my seminary class, but I didn't know about the most important cultural issue in my backyard. And so it was a documentary called Assignment Life. And that documentary showed a first trimester abortion in process. And it showed the assembly of the baby body parts. And that was what hit me, that what we're talking about is not what I thought from the media, that this is a real human being. And of course, it talked about the United States Supreme Court. It was that process that led me into law school. And then after law school, I worked for a firm in Orlando, Florida. Could have gone on to, and in fact, did have my own firm after that. And you're right, there's careers that you choose, and I could have gone on and made a lot of money. But what good was that when I'm just making somebody money or making somebody less money, just changing money from hand to hand, from one defendant or plaintiff to another. But what lasting legacy am I leaving? And so it was because of that I dedicated my life to advancing religious freedom, the sanctity of human life, and God's design for marriage and family.
That's an amazing story. I think about how when it comes to money in our possessions, we can't take them with us, right? But
Right.
we can leave, like you said, a legacy, and that's an amazing story of being willing to sacrifice to leave that legacy. And I'm thinking also about your clients because they're part of the battle as well. And these are everyday Americans, right, who are standing up, often at great cost to themselves, for religious freedom, for freedom of speech. And some people might think, hey, they're just trying to protect their own rights, but actually they're fighting to protect all of our rights. And so they're looking to leave a legacy that's positive and impactful for all of us. I was wondering if you could tell us maybe a one or two stories about what standing for freedom of speech and the free exercise of religion has cost you and your clients.
Well, as it relates to us personally, my wife and I, and those that are in this work, it costs a lot. Nobody likes to be thought badly or have bad things or lies told about them. And that's the nature when you're dealing with abortion or the LGBTQ agenda. Those two, it is a very vicious culture clash that takes place. And there are people that, though we love them on the other side of these issues, they literally not just want to destroy your reputation. Frankly, they want to kill you. There are people that want to eliminate you. So we have to take a lot of extra security precautions. We have security cameras all over our facilities and at our home, and we do active shooter training with our staff. Most of our staff are armed just in case of those kinds of situations, God forbid. But we take security precautions. However, that doesn't change a thing that we do other than be aware of our surroundings. For our clients, they sacrifice everything. There are clients, for example, in the military, commander of a Navy surface warship, and he says, I'm not going to take the COVID shots because of religious reasons, because of the aborted fetal cells. And he put his entire career on the line. He's an individual that is just incredibly inspiring, and so many others like these individuals that we have met in the military of all branches are so inspiring. They put their entire careers on the line. These are some people that had 19 and a half years in the military, and they only needed 6 months or less to reach their 20-year retirement. and they were willing to put it all on the line, and some of them frankly did. There's others that we represent, like Kim Davis. The case is still going on from 2015. She's the Kentucky clerk who says, I can't put my name and authority on a marriage that God didn't design and create and sanction. And so as a result, that case is still going on. We may end up back at the US Supreme Court with the Kim Davis case. But what's inspiring is that there are people who don't go out looking for a fight. They're not causing trouble. Many of them are not activists politically per se, but when the controversy comes knocking on their door, they press into God, and they have a stronger relationship because of the adversity that comes against them, and they take a stand, and they end up changing future history.
It's a good way to say it, Matt. You're describing ordinary Americans who have a conflict that comes their way, and in the face of that, they demonstrate extraordinary courage. And these are really big costs. You're talking about retirement, your life is at risk, your finances are at risk, your reputation, friends, family. But what makes that cost worth it? What are some of the things that you've seen being on the front lines for all these years that you go, this is why we get up every morning, or this is why we do it?
Just as an example, when we were in the height of some of these mandates, we did regular calls all the time, conference calls, multiple conference calls every week. And we had people on those calls crying, just weeping, because they knew that they had somebody that was standing with them, and that they were able to just have counsel, not just legal counsel, but spiritual counsel as well. Transformative lives. I mean, we've seen their faith grow. We've seen, as a result of their stand, other people come to the Lord because they see Jesus in their actions, and they are transformed in all that they do. It's an incredible experience. I would not trade that for millions and millions of dollars in the bank account. That's a temporary, as you mentioned, Nikki. That's temporary, and that comes and goes. But this is a legacy. The legacy that we leave is not so much what we do; it's the people we leave, that we touch, that we help, and that legacy has a ripple effect, like throwing a pebble in a pond. It literally has a ripple effect that goes on and echoes into eternity.
Mm-hmm. There's a Bible verse that says, the Lord is with you like a dread champion. And I think a lot of times in the pictures we see of Jesus painted, he's this subdued character with children. And we don't often think about how the Lord is like this guy in your corner when you need backup and you need a heavy. We need that person to come in and have our back. And it sounds like that's what you're describing, is this benefit of creating a community of courageous people who can stand together. And there are times you're going to get knocked down, but together, when you stand, you're just stronger. And having those people in that community to build you up is really important.
Absolutely. Let me give you a quick example, if I might. In the case that we won last year, 2022, 9-0 at the Supreme Court, Shurtleff versus City of Boston. Hal Shurtleff is the founder of Camp Constitution, and all he wanted to do with that is to train young people in the Constitution and the founding principles of the rule of law. So he wanted to do this in Boston, and he applied to have a flag flown for about an hour during his event, in which it would highlight the Judeo-Christian heritage and history of Boston and the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. They had 284 flags that they had approved over 12 years, not a single denial, pro-communist, anti-communist. They had all kinds of different viewpoints. They told him that you can fly the flag, but you got to change one word on the application. Don't call it Christian, call it something that's non-religious. The flag's okay. What's the problem is your perception of the flag. If you consider the flag to be religious or Christian, you can't fly it. If you will change it to a non-religious modifier, Camp Constitution flag, anything but Christian, you can fly it. Hal said no. And we thought that would be a no-brainer case. We lost at the Court of Appeals twice, 3-0, and then won 9-0 at the U.S. Supreme Court. That particular case, May the 2nd, ultimately rejected the Lemon Test of 1971. That also became the foundation for the Coach Kennedy case later in June that also rejected the Lemon Test. As a result of those two cases, what we began when we founded Liberty Counsel in 1989 as a mission among many to overturn the Lemon versus Kurtzman case that wreaked damage to the First Amendment, that became a reality decades later in 2022 with this case. So what was intended for evil or ill to Hal Shurtleff and to censor, God turned around for good. Hal had a choice. He could have walked away and we would never have this precedent and Lemon would still be standing. But Hal decided to take a stand and we were there to help him. And as a result, decades in the making, Lemon has been overturned and that will have generational impact.